Port St. Lucie Mayor, I'm Teresa Aronson from the St. Lucie County Chamber of Commerce. It is our pleasure, our honor to host this event every second Friday of the month. But I am here, of course, as I always am, with the one, the only, the mayor of the beautiful city of Port St. Lucie, Gregory Oravec.
Morning, everybody.
Thank you for being with us. As always, we have a full show today. We're going to be doing a little visit with HCA, our sponsor representative, and then a lot more with you and I talking about the year in review a bit, I think, and we'll see how that goes.
I'm sure it'll be delightful. And of course, we like to always take questions from our audience. And we got some new people out there that saw it on Facebook, even though we're on the first Friday. So look forward to hearing their questions.
Yeah, we do have a lot of new faces in the audience too. So the Facebook campaign is paying off. Your Facebook page is great. So people actually look at that one. I need to get better at it, and I'm working on it. But
the Amazon HQ2 generated about 19,000 people looking at the Facebook page. And that's my mayoral Facebook page. The cities gets all kind of action all the time because we have people like Sarah out there. Just that's what they do, is they communicate
what's going on in the
Facebook.
city. But when you put something on your personal page, like a letter to Amazon, it blows up, and then my phone rings, and I'm not good at Facebook, so I'm getting calls from reporters, and I'm what are you talking about? And then I thought, the mayor is on Facebook.
He's on Facebook.
Yes.
But it's really not the same thing as Twitter, so I don't want you to worry.
No, it's not nearly as bad. But so we'll talk about that a little bit too, because there's a couple other things that we're honing in on as far as sectors and hopefully getting some new business in the area, and some things that we can talk about a little more in detail than we have been able to do in the past. So we'll talk about that. Legislative session is going on as we speak, and what we're asking from our legislators here in the community. So there's a lot we can actually talk about today, I think. Are you excited?
There's always a lot we can talk about.
Yeah. Usually we just make stuff up, but today we have actual substance. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so very good. I am going to visit with our HCA representative for a few moments, and then you and I will get back together, and we'll start the talk.
All right, let's set up the set.
All right, stay with us, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Thank you for that. It's so nice to have the mayor as your hype man for your local government talk show. It really doesn't get any better than that. We serve all kinds of roles on this show. Okay. Welcome back to Coffee with the Port St. Lucie Mayor. I'm Teresa Aronson, and I'm here with my guests, my sponsor. They've been my sponsor for the entire year. We've loved having them. They send me somebody different every year, and I feel like it's been a great education, not only for me, but for our audience and for those watching at home. You can do so on Comcast, AT&T, and on YouTube. But with me today from the HCA family, she actually works at St. Lucie Medical Center. They also have the Lawnwood Regional Medical Center and Heart Institute, and now CareNow and the Heart and Family Institute. But I have with me Denise Covert, is an RN that deals in sepsis and stroke. Welcome to the show, Denise.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Talk a little bit about sepsis. I think people are familiar with what a stroke is, and we've talked about the signs actually before on this show, but tell us a little more about sepsis.
Only about 50% of Americans have heard of sepsis, and only 1% can tell you what the symptoms is. Sepsis is the third leading killer of Americans. It kills 250,000 people per year. Sepsis is not new. You've heard of it, it's just we weren't calling it sepsis. Excuse me. Whenever you heard that someone died from complications of pneumonia, complications of something, more often than not it was sepsis. It was 2016 when Patty Duke passed away. That was the first time I ever heard in the news of them actually saying that a celebrity passed away from sepsis, but many have. What sepsis is when an infection in your body gets out of control, and your body's response to that infection turns against itself, and it could lead to tissue damage, organ failure, and unfortunately death. Up to 30% of patients with sepsis in the hospital will expire. So that's something, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. So there's a huge push for us to try and recognize sepsis early. If we treat it early, we can make a huge difference in the survival of our patients.
Now, it kind of cuts both ways because an infection, people get those on a daily basis.
Sure.
There's infections, and you don't want to get scared into thinking that every infection is sepsis.
No, of course not. You have an infection, you go to your doctor, and you're treated appropriately. The things we want to drive home to people at home to take care of themselves and their loved ones is, like the doctor always says, take all your antibiotics as prescribed, every single one. Don't save them, stick them in the cabinet for later, and then what happens after that is don't say, well, I have an infection. Hey, you got any of those extra antibiotics in your cabinet to your friends or your neighbors? Don't take any that were not prescribed for you because that leads to extra drug resistance. And you know, when you start taking your antibiotics in a couple days, you should start to feel better. But if you don't feel better, or if your symptoms get worse, or you get new symptoms that start to feel like kind of the flu, you have kind of aches and pains, generalized fever, hard to breathe, stuff like that, please immediately go to your emergency room and get treated. Say to the physician, I have an infection, I'm worried I could have sepsis. Because the treatment for this, we give broad spectrum antibiotics right away, and we give a large amount of fluids as the patient tolerates to help reperfuse the tissues. And every hour that those antibiotics are delayed, mortality goes up 8%.
Oh my goodness.
It's huge. So please, take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones. If you have an infection, seek appropriate medical treatment, but if you're not getting better on your home therapy, on your antibiotics, please tell your doctor, go to the ER, and just get seen and get checked out. There's no one specific test for sepsis, but we can look at your symptoms and other lab work and see if you really are septic and if we can treat you for that.
If other things are kind of going wrong besides just your white blood cell count.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, very good. And we talked about antibiotics, and you know, I have asthma, so I end up getting a cold, and then I end up needing the antibiotics. Is it safe to take antibiotics more than a few times a year, or is that an issue? What should people know about taking antibiotics besides take every single one, don't feel better, and stop?
Well, yeah, you want to take, if the doctor prescribes you antibiotics, you need them, and you need to take them. Your primary care physician wants to be a good steward of antibiotics. They're not going to prescribe them if you don't need them. If you come in with the flu, antibiotics aren't going to help you. The flu is viral, you know, so I know when I was younger, I'd be like, wait, I'm sick, I want something.
Yeah, give me something.
Sometimes that doesn't work. A lot of times what we tell people who have to take antibiotics a lot is eat yogurt. Yogurt's got the good probiotics that help keep away the other uncomfortable side effects that come with antibiotics, or take a probiotic. But yeah, definitely just take what's prescribed for you. I had a physician ask me, and they said, well, if someone's septic and we're just throwing a broad spectrum antibiotic, aren't we worried about drug resistance? I said, no, we're worried about them dying. Let's take care of that first. And then drug resistance is very important, but we want to save lives here first. So that's what's most important. But absolutely, if your physician thinks the antibiotics are appropriate, then you really do need them, so please take them.
And it's not one antibiotic fits all.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, there's different things that different antibiotics treat different areas, different types.
Definitely. If we know where your infection's coming from, like say you have shingles. Shingles is a viral illness, so we know the treatment for that. But if you just have pneumonia, it could be any sort of bug. So we have certain ones that tend to lean more towards lung-related infections. But if you're in the hospital, they'll do blood cultures, and we'll wait for those to come back, and then we can tailor them more. But we do have certain ones for certain body areas that usually work. But again, the one you receive may not be the right one, and that's where you could start to get sicker. Because you know, when you go to the regular doctor, you don't have cultures done or anything like that. You know, if you start to get sicker, if you're not getting better, see your doctor, go to the ER, just get some help, because we want to make sure that the infection doesn't get out of control.
Right, and that's a good point. We don't do cultures. They don't swab and look under. They, take your blood cell count and basically look at you and try to figure it out. So you have to be the own steward of your body.
Definitely.
Very good. It's a good message, and I guess you're charged with getting that message out in our community.
I am, and thank you so much for having me here, because I want to try to reach as many community members as I can.
Good, good. And we want to help, and we'll put this up on our Facebook page, and hopefully you'll do the same for St. Lucie Medical, because it is flu season, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yes, please get your flu shot. The flu is really bad. We've seen a lot of flu at St. Lucie Medical. I've seen a lot of sepsis with the flu. So please get your flu shot. For more information about sepsis, sepsis, you could go to sepsis.org. That is the International Surviving Sepsis Alliance. There's a lot of great information for lay people where you can look and find information to help you keep yourself and your family healthy.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being with us. It is a good message. It is flu season. You can get them at Walgreens.
Everywhere.
I mean, yeah, where can't you get them?
Everywhere.
So we appreciate you being with us today, and we appreciate the support of the HCA families.
My pleasure.
Treasure Coast Healthcare System.
Coast.
Very good. Thank you so much. And we will be right back with, of course, Mayor Oravec. With the Port St. Lucie Mayor, I'm Teresa Aronson from the St. Lucie County Chamber of Commerce. I'm joined, as I always am at this event, with the one, the only Mayor of the beautiful city of Port St. Lucie, Gregory Oravec.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Welcome back.
There we go. There's some enthusiasm. That's what we like.
Much, much better.
All right, so what's on your mind?
I don't have a lot on my mind, but we did talk about it last year. Do I ever have a lot on my mind?
I was going to say, Brad, you might want to get that snippet.
For that.
Yes.
I know, I left you wide open. We talked last month about a project coming into Tradition.
We did. We just kind of teased it out.
Teased it out, and so I think it would be appropriate for us to talk a little bit more about that project, as we're now able to disclose a little bit more about that, actually a lot more about that project.
Yes, I mean, we can just basically the full Monty. So who out there has heard of City Electric at this point? All right, so maybe about 60% of the room. So City Electric is an economic development project. Right now, they operate in St. Lucie West light industrial area. They are an electric supply wholesaler. They're a manufacturer as well, and fluorescent light fixtures, junction boxes, all kinds of electrical supplies. They actually manufacture them. And it may be that the fluorescent housing in your office was manufactured by Tamlight, and that's one of their major brands. So they have grown over the last 20 plus years in Port St. Lucie, going from about 50 people to about 222 people today. And essentially they've grown beyond the capacity of the St. Lucie West light industrial area. They have 5 buildings. They're maxed out at about 200,000 square feet, and it's time for them to take to the next level. They'd like to, in the near term, grow to 272 employees, and they'd like to build and consolidate their whole operation in about 400,000 square feet of space. So they hired a professional site selector.
They did?
And they evaluated 3 cities. Dallas, which is where some of their other parent corporation headquarters are, Charlotte, and then right here in Port St. Lucie. And how this works is, kind of peeling back the curtain for you, is we, through the Economic Development Council, were notified that there was a company looking to expand manufacturing in Florida. And we kind of had a feeling it was maybe an existing business. And we assemble our team. I mean, we're talking the city, the county, Dr. Massey from IRSC, the Economic Development Council.
Enterprise Florida.
Enterprise. We bring them all together, and you talk to the professional site selector, and you try to work out the details. And if you wanted to be a fly in the room, for my part there, I just said, look, if you want to consolidate your whole operation, well, then we can't really compete with Dallas because you're there. But if you want to be anywhere else, and if you want to stay where you've grown, this part of your operation, well, there's no place better for you than setting up and being the anchor tenant of our jobs corridor. And you know what the jobs corridor is. How many people out here know what I mean when I say jobs corridor?
Brad and Patricia and Jane, the usual suspects.
Right, so before we were maybe 60-70% awareness, now we're to 4%. And how many people know Tradition? All right, a lot more know Tradition, right? So one of the reasons why Tradition, and especially the Southwest Annexation area, the south part of Tradition, south of Tradition Parkway, part of the real impetus, the drive behind annexing that into the city was already plenty big, right? It already had plenty of houses. The reason for bringing that into city council at the time is they really wanted to change the economy, and they wanted that to be a jobs corridor, a place where manufacturers and technology and employers located. So we have roughly 4 miles at least 3+ from interchange to interchange, from the Gatlin/Tradition Parkway interchange to the Becker Road interchange. And that whole frontage on I-95 is called the Jobs Corridor.
And we used to call it Southern Groves. We referred to it a bit as Southern Groves.
Yes, AKA Southern Grove. It's now being branded as part of Tradition. And it is, I don't want to get too geeky with you, it's Development of Regional Impact. They're separate, but they're branded together under the name Tradition. But that whole corridor there is the Jobs Corridor. And so the pitch was, hey, rather than moving, be the founding anchor of the manufacturing side of the Jobs Corridor. And ultimately, that was very compelling.
Yeah.
They selected Port St. Lucie.
Right.
And essentially the day after our last session, or later that day, that's when the terms of the deal came out. So they're going to build 400,000 square feet. They're going to invest $40 million. They're going to employ 272 people, making an average wage of about $43,000 a year.
Which is higher than our average.
Right. To put that in context, right now, Port St. Lucie, we want to be safe, beautiful, and prosperous city for all people, your hometown. That's our vision statement. To get there, we need our people to make more money. Right? We got to lift up the economy. We've got to lift up the quality of life. So we're looking for jobs, really any jobs that don't hurt the environment or the world, that pay more than our existing. So we're at about $36,000 a year now.
Yep.
And so having jobs at $43,000, keeping 222 and adding 50, that helps pull it up. And that's about a 20% lift.
And for those of you at home, that means more of those places that you ask about will be interested in coming to our area, the more we can raise our median income. I wanted to talk about and get it on the table because people always say, oh, haven't we been down this road before? But the reality is no, we have not been down this road before. We have not done anything really like this with them. We're not giving them any money up front. We're not paying them to come to town. They're already in town. They're making an investment. And then we are going to put a road in, hopefully, that we will get funds from the state from, and we have some matching funds from a particular pot of money designated for Tradition. So I want to make sure that people understand that it's not the same deals that have been done in the past.
Thank you so much for driving that point home. And this is really critical because as your mayor, I see it play out in a smattering of letters to the editor or a smattering of posts on Facebook where it's clear that some people, they don't have the time to really learn everything behind the facts behind the story. And what I've noticed is not everyone, of that group, of that smattering, the people there, they see City Electric or any economic development as the same thing as a digital domain or a VGTI. Or even for some reason they throw Torrey Pines in there. But I just want to hit that on the head. So it's already been about 13 years since Port St. Lucie worked with Torrey Pines to bring the Institute here to just north of where City Electric's going to go and just south of Tradition Medical Center, all right? And that deal is not funded by tax dollars. It's funded by an impact fee that developers pay. New development pays that. So that's not the general fund. That's not your property tax dollars. And the only reason why there was a period where it was covered by us, the taxpayers, is because when we were in the recession, which here was really a depression, there was no new development, so that it had to be covered. But now that things have, we're at least on the path to recovery. I won't say that we're back to the peak.
We're getting there.
We're getting there, and that's being covered by impact fees. It's not our tax dollars paying for that Torrey Pines Institute of Molecular Studies.
Correct.
So that's the first caveat. And by the way, they're still in business working hard. So let's root for them, not against them. Let's not throw them under the bus or kick them in sensitive areas. Let's try to support them and be the wind at their back.
Yeah.
All right, so that's one note. Now with digital domain and VGTI, you can tee off on that, especially in hindsight. But here's the thing. The only reason why that is a huge negative for us as taxpayers is because we guaranteed the financing of the buildings. All right? We did something that's called a covenant to budget and appropriate. We promised to budget and then appropriate dollars for any shortfall. That's like co-signing for your kids, all right? They didn't
exactly
pay on it. You do.
Parenting 101.
That's the reason. It's not because we gave them wheelbarrows full of cash. I mean, there was plenty of state money involved, but that's a different issue. For us, it wasn't cash that did it. It was guaranteeing the loans, and when they failed, we had the buildings as collateral, and the buildings don't cover the loan, essentially. So that's why we're paying the difference, all right? But it was because of that guarantee, what we call a covenant to budget and appropriate, because they were bonds. 2.5 years ago already, 2.5 years ago, the council, and Vice Mayor and I were on that council, we changed the law so you cannot use CB&As, those guarantees, for economic development purposes anymore. So by law, there can't be another digital domain in VGTI. And so really, if there's any one message that I'd ask you to take home with you today, it's that one. So by definition, City Electric can't be a digital domain in VGTI for Port St. Lucie.
Right. It didn't happen that way. It's not what it is. It's a whole new thing, and they're the ones that are really driving it.
Right. So that's the big one, and then that's a technical point that you know, some people, the ones that write or that are vocal, they don't seem to pick up on that. But there's a few other important reasons that they're different also. Obviously, City Electric's been here for a couple decades. Mm-hmm. They're the 8th largest electrical wholesaler, you know, in their segment.
And so it's the 8th largest city in Florida. It's a match made in heaven.
So they're a going concern. They have a track record. They're good at what they do. They're already here, so they already have local roots. This isn't buying, importing someone from the outside. This is a member of our existing community that we're helping get to the next level, and we're helping them through a couple tools here at the city. One is property tax abatement, okay, which is a tool where we forego future tax revenue. We never come out of pocket and say, Trissa, I'm going to pay you to be here. We're just going to forego the revenue. Where's your wallet at? We're just going to forego the revenue that you would generate. And that's a tool that was adopted and approved by the voters. So that's really important.
And I think a powerful tool, and one that I will stand behind, because the reality is yes, you're going to alleviate their tax burden for usually a standard amount of time, but the reality is eventually we will get those taxes from them in the future, but you can't get taxes from them, something that doesn't exist. So if that helps get them going and they exist, then we have some tax money in the future, and we know it's coming.
Absolutely, and there are 5 existing buildings. There are existing 200,000 square feet in St. Lucie West aren't going away. So that will be backfilled, and that'll be someone else creating jobs and tax value there. And then we get the $40 million investment, the 400,000 square feet.
Right.
And then it's a 5-year abatement with a sliding scale. And so, you know, most buildings, even you could say 20-year life cycle.
Now, I want to move on to the fact that it is a manufacturing company, and that means that they have manufacturing equipment there. And you and I have both talked about this previously on the show and in private, that how much we are proponents for vocational training. They call it career and technical training. You can call it whatever you want, but it's certification in trades, realistically. And there is some legislation or proposal at the state level to, IRSC has requested $14.5 million to finish what they want to put on campus, which is a vocational career technical trade training. And they're actually going to call it a manufacturing center. And what that means for us, because I think that when we talk about economic development, people see the new Popeyes or the new Starbucks and they think that, oh, we're developing economically. But the reality is your economic development comes from jobs, median household income, and people that bring their tax money here. So manufacturers are great for us because the tax base comes back to where it originated, which is what we want. And so how important do you think that training is? Because in order for us to attract more manufacturers, we have to have the workforce.
Well, if you ask companies, employers, what's the number one thing for you on making a determination on site location, like an Amazon headquarters, it's talent. So you have to have the workforce, and if you're talking about manufacturing, you have to have a workforce that's knowledgeable in manufacturing. It's that simple. It's very straightforward, and I like that you pointed out the economics of it. You're really watching the flow of money. So anytime that you create a product or a unique service, you import money. Because people from all over want that product, and they send the money. So you want to be where that importer of money is. Things like service, retail, you're exporting money. Those are corporations that have headquarters other places, with people other places, and the money's leaving town. So you want it to stay here. You want to import money. You want to see it cycle through the community and lift up the whole community.
We have retail national chains that are franchises, and franchise owners are local, so the money stays here. But typically, like a McDonald's, which is held corporately, you can't really buy a McDonald's. I don't think you can be a franchise holder. There's a few of them. When you pay for your food at McDonald's, it goes back to McDonald's headquarters. It doesn't stay here in your community. When you manufacture something and somebody buys that, it goes back to their headquarters, which would be our community. So that's what we're looking for, and that's what we need to have talent to do.
Absolutely. And of course, the Chamber has plenty of great franchisees.
A ton of great franchisees.
And that's better than the corporate that's outside the community. But at the same time, on the retail, and while we say that, a retail, whatever shopping center that you want, whatever brand you want, whatever restaurant you want, that's not economic development. That's for us to enjoy. That is shopping and kind of restaurant development, but it's not economic development because the franchisee's probably doing pretty well.
Yeah.
There's probably a couple managers that are doing pretty well. But if the people on the floor can't support a family and benefits on what they're making, then that's not lifting up our community. So we need it. That's entry level. It's transitional. But we shouldn't look at that as economic development.
No, it's kind of a result of economic development.
It is.
And it's a sign of your economic development, but it is not economic development itself. Speaking of Amazon, which of course when you buy things on Amazon, the money does not stay here, for sure. Nobody in our community gets a paycheck from Amazon, I don't think, but it'd be a good question to ask your Facebook fans. You wrote a letter, there is a lot of news on them relocating or actually establishing a second location in addition to their Seattle location. They had a laundry list of items that they wanted. We didn't really meet 70% of those needs that they were asking for. But you always have to throw your hat in the ring. I mean, it doesn't hurt. It didn't cost us anything.
No, well, actually, it always costs us time, and there's incidental costs, but something like that is really worth it. It causes the team to dream big.
It does.
To think about the future, what's required to get where we want to go. In this case, Elijah Wooten is our business navigator. He's pretty new to the community, so he was able to work with the whole team, the EDC, St. Lucie County, Fort Pierce, Representative Harrell's office. And so it was a great team building exercise. And then you just never know. And we suspect that they'll go to an Atlanta or a Boston or a New York. But we were the counter option. We were the counter punch. We were the something different. Do you want to go to a great, world city? Or do you want to help build one? Yeah, do you want to be the anchor to want to establish what you need for your residents, which I think was a great approach. And I'm not saying it won't work. I don't know. But no, I mean, that would be like, that would be winning the lotto or, lightning bolt from the blue sky kind of thing. But you have to take those opportunities because it might push you along. You never know what's going to come as a result. Is it a distribution center? Is it a spin-off? Is someone going to discover just for being in national headlines? Yes, exactly. Port St. Lucie. So if nothing else from a marketing perspective, it was worth the effort. The PR. They always say there's no such thing as bad PR, although some people may differ. But the reality is, and that's what I told when the newspaper called me and said, "Oh, did you read the letter?" I said, look, if somebody else reads that letter and decides to come here because we put our name out there to try to get the Amazon, then we win. It's definitely worth it. From my viewpoint, just working with the community, to see 90% of 19,000 people take the time to post on Facebook, that's a win right there. Just bringing the community together. And that we're all kind of letting them know it's dream big. We can get there. Correct. And you got to have community pride. And this goes back to the opposite, and why I'm glad that you brought up City Electric and some of the other things. we can't get stuck in our past, and we can't be too hard on ourselves or ashamed or angry, especially angry over time because of things like digital domain and VGTI. Those happened years ago. The law changed. And I had one customer, one citizen, who said, well, but we're still paying. I said, but ma'am, given the law behind bonds, even if a $10 million check fell from the sky today, earmarked for a digital domain, we can't pay it off for 10 years.
Yeah.
Do you really want to be angry and ashamed or embarrassed or have these negative feelings for a decade? We can't afford that. I always say that when you get elected mayor or council person, or you step up to lead a major organization like the Chamber, they don't give you the keys to a time machine. There's no hot tub time machine where you can go back in time and make everything perfect. Ideally, there's learning from the past and then moving forward. That's really the best that we can do. I feel like we've done that, as reflected in how we're moving forward, working with local businesses, not putting any upfront cash, using proven tools, and even that road that you mentioned for City Electric, the Loop Road that you might have heard about for City Electric, is going to be funded by developer contributions, not taxpayer dollars.
Right, there's a fund that they developed to impact fees to and contributions to, so that we could develop that area. And it's sitting there ready to be used on that. It's not money that we're taking from any other pot in the city.
And it's not just for City Electric, it opens up another 5 development pads so that City Electric can be the start of something much greater. And talking about something much greater, the other thing that happened over this last week, we're here taping the first Friday of November, that happened last week was that Traditional Medical Center opened its expansion. And so that's a 500,000 square feet that was developed. I mean, it's amazing to think it opened, doubled
in size.
It opened 100% occupancy and then doubled in a 5-year period. That's a 500,000 square feet. That is 1,000 jobs paying $45,000 a year. And the general rule of thumb in economic development is that the payroll cycles through the community 3 times. So if you think about $135 million of economic impact cycling through the community every time, I mean, how many times have you read that in the paper or seen that on Facebook? How many people have you just seen posting randomly in yours? Oh, I'm so proud that this happened.
Yeah.
You don't see it. So if
We
you're
can post it today and ask them to share it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that is going to be one of the next ones that I'm actually working with the EDC to set the narrative on that positive economic impact. I asked them to actually take it through a formal model.
So realistically, what you're saying is our salaries, the people that get paid here, and even the McDonald's worker, their salaries cycle through our community up to 3 times, to change hands within the community 3 times.
And this is why, it's funny how all these things connect, isn't it?
Yes.
So this is why we want to import money. We want to see those wages be high, because rather than just going to McDonald's or fill in the blank and seeing your money leave the community, you're going to pay for photography services because you want your family photo. You're going to have tax services. You're going to do investment. And so now you're paying someone else in the community for a service or a good, and that's going to spread through their business, and that's going to get respent in the community.
Yep.
And that's how an economy works.
It is how an economy works. Economy 101. Last thing I want to talk about is a positive thing, because people were interested in it, and that is, of course, Costco. Everybody wants
people are interested in it.
Yes, everybody. We're very predictable as humans. We want to know about where we're going to spend our money, particularly, and I think Costco is right up there. But we had, to give a background very quickly, they were slated to go in Martin County. They bought a site, they picked out a site, they applied to put their store on that site, and
they got the beat down.
Yeah, Martin County is not in love with the new development, as many of us know in the community. So we have reached out to them, we have sent them many things, and we said we would be more than happy to have you in our community. And they kept saying, And what happened now?
Well, we had a great meeting, and again, I always like to just share, whatever it is you might want to know. this is like where the little things and relationships come in. So we had some fun. So of course we reached out to them as they were going through that process, but until they got that fourth no, they were really committed to this site. But something
Committed,
happened with
Martha.
that fourth or fifth no, and it changed their mind.
They're just not that into him.
No. But so we had a nice sit-down meeting with the real estate and legal team of Costco at the Botanical Gardens, and the city manager, Russ Blackburn, had the whole development review staff. And thanks to you and our friend John Magnan,
Yes, at Superior Event Rentals.
I actually walked in with a huge roll of red carpet on my shoulder. I walked, so, you were all meeting about there, and I walked in exactly 10 o'clock, because that's when the meeting start time was, and I dropped the roll of red carpet with a big thud and said, if you commit to the city, we'll be happy to roll that out for you.
Yeah.
And so that was the icebreaker to the meeting, and it was very constructive. And as I shared with the audience, I'm not a gambler. I don't believe in wasting time on prognostication, and because you could just waste your whole life on that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But from time to time, I am known to bet $1, and I would bet my dollar that we will get it, that Costco will locate in the city. It's not a sure thing, though. I do think they're evaluating one site in Stewart.
Yes.
So we'll have to see what happens. Now, they're of course, just like you wanted to have your holiday show.
Yes.
They're getting ready for the holidays, so they probably won't make their decision until the end of the first quarter of the calendar year 2018.
Yeah.
So their team is working. I think we've been in contact with them on the backside, and we'll see what happens. So a lot of people, again, like brand awareness, people love their Costco. They love Chick-fil-A. They love Popeyes. I mean,
Cheesecake Factory.
Oh, cheesecake.
Yeah.
But just real quick on that, because this is another thing that comes up on Facebook. People somehow think that I as mayor or we as the city council can dictate, well, you're going to be Popeyes and you're going to be a sit-down restaurant, and then there's going to be Cheesecake Factory there. We don't have that level of control. So, it's a big, heavy subject, land use and development, real estate development. But at the end of the day, the city council have the ability to designate land use, and that's general use. Like, hey, this area is going to be commercial, Sarah's area is going to be multifamily, Gary's area is going to be single family. We don't get to decide the tenants that go in the commercial. With zoning, we can say, hey, we want you 25 feet off the road. You got to have this many parking spots.
Some trees.
You got to have this type of landscaping. But we don't get to say, you're Cheesecake Factory, nothing else.
Yes.
That would actually violate the law and private property rights. So that's another thing. If you can help learn that process and explain it to your friends and neighbors, you'll be doing us a great service, because we spend a lot of time explaining that. And the reality is that a Cheesecake Factory, so we've designated this area right here as commercial, and we put zoning in place that's commercial, and it allows a restaurant like Cheesecake Factory. We've done our part as a city directly with the authority we have, but now it's up to the market to decide whether this is an attractive site or not.
Yes.
So
It's called free enterprise.
it's right.
And commercial,
That's the free market at work. So Cheesecake Factory, as a successful business, they know what type of customers they need, how many, how much those customers make within a certain drive time of this location. And they're going to make the decision on whether they locate there or not. We can't make them. We can't exclude another restaurant from locating there. So it's really up to the market. And what you're going to find is that a retailer, restaurateur of that caliber wants like 100,000 people making 100,000 a year within a 30-minute drive. There's 185,000 people in Port St. Lucie. That includes a lot of kids. And unfortunately, as we've already pointed out, the average wage
annual
is 36,000. So we're not there yet. And that's why things like jobs corridors and the future of west of 95 and our infill development is so important.
Well, I want to open it up to questions, and we also have a couple of prizes that Sarah was able to secure for us for maybe some trivia. Does anybody have any questions? Mark has the microphone, and he'd be glad to bring that around. Does anybody have any questions? Really? Okay, very good. Good morning.
Good morning. Ms. Aronson, good morning, Mayor.
Morning.
I'm Angeline. I'm an ambassador with the Chamber of Commerce. I'm pro-economic growth, by the way, but with regards to the jobs corridor and the Village Parkway, all that area, is there any provisions being made for the wildlife there? I'm aware there was a large boar incident on the Port St. Lucie stretch that actually caused some accidents and people were injured. Is there any provision being made for the wildlife
Well,
being displaced?
yes, the answer is yes. And all of the species that require attention, like gopher tortoises, and there are not any caracaras over there, but all of those animals are accounted for as part of the development process. Now, as you may know, most of that is actually, it's been developed, just very low intensity because it was pasture. That's grazing land. So that land didn't used to look like that. It's been developed one time for agricultural purposes, and now it's going to be developed over time. It's not going to develop overnight, so that development's going to push to the green belts and everything that we've established. The gopher tortoises have to be relocated by law, so all those laws are going to be followed. But the reality is that 4 miles of drive on Village Parkway South, that is supposed to be more hospital, in fact, between the hospital, Torrey Pines, and the Florida Center for Biosciences, we just approved 70,000 more square feet of medical office. So another 3-story building, another 2-story building are going up there. That's going to be the skyline out there. And so that's why it's important for us to plan our green belts and our parks so that they interconnect. And but hogs, I'm always straightforward to a fault. Hogs are not protected. I mean, when we're talking.
Got plenty of them.
Yeah, and in fact.
I heard this one was particularly large as well, and it caused an auto accident with more than one vehicle.
But they're invasive, so usually they're problem animals. They're actually killing the native wildlife.
So we have environmental mitigation, and so we have laws in place and ordinances in place, and we'll make sure that is all taken care of for sure.
But they've been rooting in the median, actually, and I've called that in a number of times. It's not heavily traveled, that wraparound Village South to Becker, but in the Becker median with Village, yeah, they were rooting, and they're looking for grubs. Not exactly like Lion King, but who was that? What was the warthog's name?
I am bad at Disney, so
Sarah?
wait, trivia question. What was the boar's name in The Lion King? Ariel is the youngest person in the room and the only one that raised her hand.
He was a warthog and his name was Pumbaa.
That's correct.
Okay,
That's
very
correct.
good. We have a communications mug and a sticker, bumper sticker. It says, "My city, I'm part of it, I'm proud of it." Very nice.
Thank you very much. Well done.
So that was our first trivia question. We have another trivia question. Who can tell me what the mayor said he would like the one takeaway to be from today's coffee?
Can't have a repeat
Anybody other,
winner.
Mark can tell us. Mark Kowalski, if you want to bring it up, Mark. That Mark to that Mark. There we go. I know, I just kept saying Mark, and he's just staring at me like, what do you want from me? Yes.
That's a strange looking Marky Mark.
Yes.
That would make him the Funky Bunch.
Okay. Richard's the Funky Bunch, and Marky and Mark. Very good.
The takeaway is
Feel it.
the takeaway is that the law's been changed so that something like VGTI or digital domain can't happen here again.
Oh,
Man, that guy's so
nailed it.
good.
Nailed it.
Thank you.
Very good.
Well, there's 2 in there.
I know. Share a sticker with Richard or the other Marky. Anybody else have any other questions? We are getting low on time, but we can take another question or two if anybody has one. Wow, very good crowd today. We covered a lot. I want to save something for the Christmas show that I now know we're doing.
Oh, there's plenty.
Okay, good.
There's plenty of
Good.
action to come.
Good. Well, I've enjoyed today. It's nice to talk about some real issues and economic development. We spent a little bit more time on it than we usually do, so I enjoyed that very much.
We got to have more than candy. It can't just be fluff.
It
all the
can't
time.
be fluff. I mean, I like to have a lot of fluff, as many people know.
It generates more Facebook.
Yeah, it does. But I want to thank all of you for being with us today, and I want to thank, of course, our sponsor, HCA, Treasure Coast Healthcare System family, and Silver Platter Entrees. Silver Platter Entrees is still the official caterer of Coffee with the Port St. Lucie Mayor.
And tea.
And tea, yep, absolutely. And they do that every month for us. Don't forget, second Friday of the month, typically 8:30 a.m., free, open to the public, right here in the council chambers at City Hall. You too can join us, but if not, check us out on YouTube, Comcast, or AT&T. Until next time, everybody.